So why does this occur? So these older firms we often refer to as incumbent firms, those who were within the industry in the past. Why do these incumbent firms often fail? At the beginning, I gave you a number of examples. Why wasn't Remington able to make the transition to microprocessors? Why wasn't Studebaker Brothers able to make a successful transition to automobiles? Why wasn't Kodak able to move to digital technology? Well, the first obvious answer is they're no better positioned than new entrants once this technology shift occurs. Their existing capabilities are in essence rendered valueless in this new world. The most obvious way to see this is technologically. Kodak had 100 years of expertise basically in the chemistry of film manufacturing and processing. That did not help or translate into a digital world. Sometimes it's beyond technology. It might actually be more organizationally. So I mentioned before Best Buy and big box retailers. If you're a small local retailer of electronics and now you are facing a Best Buy, you can imagine the organizational complexity of trying now to adjust your business model to compete in this new world. And similarly, it just might simply be market-wise here. There's some very interesting analyses done on the disk drive industry in the US and abroad. And what you find in the disk drive industry is that disk drives originally were designed for large mainframe computers. And what mattered for mainframes was not size, but just simply the size, the capacity of the disk, and also the speed at which the disk operated at. But then as we moved to personal computers and eventually laptop computers, the dimensions of merit that really mattered for these disk drives tended to be issues around small physical footprint and the ability to fit these into your laptop computer. So while the underlying technology was more or less the same as it went through these transitions, the customer base had actually changed dramatically. In the case of mainframes, they were selling to large institutional clients, different organizations and the like, whereas they moved into the PC world and especially the laptop world, they're now selling directly to customers who have a different value set and different value proposition. So they may be no better than new entrants. They might actually even be worse than new entrants. We talked last session about this idea of core rigidities, that your success breeds complacency and then makes it less likely for you to be responsive when these types of changes are coming about. It's almost as if the incumbent firm fails to see the way the industry is evolving. Maybe they're in denial that this is going to come about. Maybe they dismiss the new technology and suggest this is not going to happen. You know, think about the automobile industry. We're going to have internal combustion engines that are gasoline powered forever. We don't need to worry about hybrids or all these electric vehicles and the like that are coming down the road. That would be the essence of a kind of a core rigidity framework. Finally, we should recognize that in some cases, a firm might recognize the impending change to their industry due to a business model shift or a technology shift, but they recognize that it's actually in their best interest not to change in the short run. In essence, they're worried either about cannibalizing their product or they recognize that they're just simply not going to be able to make a good transition. Think about Blockbuster Video in this regard. Blockbuster Video, highly successful firm, highly successful in the retail business for rentals of videos, a market that was robust, successful for many, many years. And then, of course, we've now gone through a transition in recent years to video on demand services and online streaming. The current capabilities of Blockbuster, which is as a retail establishment, don't translate, obviously, to this new world of on-stream demand, on-streaming of video. One could argue that it was just simply best for Blockbuster to recognize this, do what they do best, and basically plan for their obsolescence. Hard for firms to do, but sometimes the best strategic option available to a firm. Now, of course, it's the case that incumbents don't always fail. So what are the things that push back on this? What are some things that make incumbent firms more likely to succeed when we have these disruptions occur? Well, in some industries, innovation is very capital intensive and requires quite a bit of expertise. We can think about industries like nuclear power. You know, the idea that two guys in their garage are going to come up with some advance in nuclear technology seems pretty unlikely. And so what you often see in these very R&D intensive industries, that large established players will continue to be successful in the industry because they're the only ones with the resources to be able to pursue innovation in those spaces. In some cases, you can think about even consumer electronics, the customer might desire the assurance of having an established firm as the one they buy from. This might have been part of Ryo's challenge in the digital music player market. You have Apple entering the industry, and Apple's an established player. They've been selling personal computers for many, many years. So while this was a shift for them, they still had a brand and a loyalty that would help them succeed in this new market that a new entrepreneurial entrant wouldn't necessarily have. In some cases, there might be other complementary capabilities that the firm has, the incumbent firm has, that allows them to succeed in the market. People remember the company Netscape in the browser market. Netscape was the pioneer of internet browsers. They had at one point basically 100% market share of that market. And then along comes Microsoft with Internet Explorer. Microsoft is able to leverage their existing architecture in the operating system Windows and all the other subsequent products and software that they have to basically thwart Netscape and take over that market. So it wasn't necessarily that they had the innovative capability as much as it is they had the complementary assets that allowed them to succeed. And more broadly, we can think about this idea of a dynamic capability. Basically, the ability for a firm to adjust to changing business conditions. IBM comes to mind. IBM, historically, the builder of large mainframe computers. They recognized a shift in technology, a shift in the industry, and then in the early 90s made a shift from being primarily a hardware company to being more of a software and services company now. There we see a dynamic capability to make this adjustment.